Alright, gang, hope you're not sick of me yet. We're going to do a quick video here right before the Golden Globes start. We're about a couple hours away from the start there, so I figured now would be a good time to go over some BAFTA nomination predictions, Producer and Director Guild Award nomination predictions as well. And I might just throw in some WGA thoughts. We kind of already covered that in a different video here, but I'll kind of maybe just quickly go over those one more time while I'm at it, so I'm going to get those loaded up here as well. Okay, so BAFTA is up next here. They're announcing their nominations very early for the American audiences here on Tuesday. Otherwise, I think it's regular morning hours over in GMT. So in the meantime here, we'll kind of go over some nomination predictions here. I will be doing live reactions as long as they have a live stream. I'm going to double check that later on in the well, before Tuesday for sure. But they've done a live stream the last few years, so I wouldn't imagine it's going to be much of a problem to do a live stream there. And then, yep, we'll do that. And yeah, so that'll be on Tuesday there. So getting into the BAFTA nomination predictions. I'm just going to start with really just the screenplay categories and go up to Best British Film and Best Film overall. So one key thing, though, to start out with here before we get too far is that everything I've checked, everything I've seen, says that Parasite did not open over in the UK in time to qualify this year. It's opening in late February after the award show has been done. So to the best of my knowledge, everything with Parasite is going to have to wait until next year for BAFTA. That happened with Elle a couple of years ago. There was a potential nominee there at BAFTA in 2017 versus 2016 in the pretty much everywhere else, including the Oscars and everything. So that leaves a few holes here for a few categories like screenplay, director, picture, maybe even a few acting races, and so on and so forth. Starting though with with adapted screenplay, the five I have in are Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, The Irishman, and The Two Popes. And I feel like these are the kind of consensus 5 picks here. Again, Joker did very, very well here in the UK. Was number one for, I think, like I said in previous, maybe 5 or 6 weeks is what I read on Box Office Mojo there. So it's been crazy the amount of attention this movie's gotten in the UK. And so I think it's going to do pretty good here at BAFTA. Is that good enough to get what's his name, Todd Phillips in for director? That's questionable. Could happen, but I'm not betting on it right now. But screenplay, though, I do think is a good bet. If it does get in here, and I do have it in at the WGAs since The Two Popes is not eligible, then yeah, I think that's could definitely help it as well. In the meantime here, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood definitely still has a chance here. We could see Judy overperform here. It's got a British director. Judy Garland, of course, if you've seen the movie, you know that almost all of it takes place in London. So it might appeal to the BAFTA voters a little more here. And so I have a couple more nominations for Judy coming up here. And then Downton Abbey might be one that they go with here. Again, depends on how well they like the film overall. So there could be a couple sneak surprises in here. For original screenplay, I have 1917 getting in, Knives Out, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I have Pain and Glory being the last one here. So I'm leaving out The Farewell, I'm leaving out Bombshell, I'm leaving out, a couple other ones there. But and as we mentioned, Parasite's not eligible. So unless it's been totally miscommunicated and it is, they got some screenings in or something, then that one won't be in. And yeah, even though, as we've been talking about, the war movies do struggle a lot in this screenplay category, especially lately. 1917, it's from a British filmmaker about British soldiers. It's just going to probably, if it doesn't lead nominations on Tuesday, I would be very surprised because it's going to do very well here at BAFTA. Otherwise, Knives Out, I see that one getting in here. Pain and Glory, we did see Cold War get in for screenplay here last year. And as we get to director, we might mention Pain and Glory again here, just a little sneak surprise there. Because Cold War did do very well over here at BAFTA, and that kind of set up a little bit of the expectation of, okay, maybe Pawlowski, or I think that's close to how you pronounce his name, maybe it is possible he gets in, and then, of course, he did. But, so Farewell, Bombshell are a couple other ones. Us and Uncut Gems are a couple other, maybe, potential surprises here in original screenplay. For supporting actress, the 5 I have are Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, Jennifer Lopez for Hustlers, Florence Pugh for The Little Women, and Margot Robbie in for Bombshell. Now, we did see Annette Bening, Zhao Shuzhen, Kathy Bates. Those are 3 that got in elsewhere. And then also, I think Maggie Smith might have a small chance of getting nominated here for Downton Abbey, again, depending on how well the film does overall. But this could be the one big, comeback for Florence Pugh as she goes into the Oscar nominations week. And, definitely being nominated here helps her. If she misses here, like we kind of mentioned in a different video, then I don't know. I feel like that'll be done. Kind of similar to Judi Dench a couple years ago for the other Queen Victoria movie they did that I totally forgot the title of right now. She got nominated at SAG and Globes and stuff, but then she missed at BAFTA, so that was kind of a little bit of a tighter race there. So it was like, once that was out at BAFTA, then we knew it was probably not going to happen. Victoria and Abdul, that's what it was called. That's right. Okay, for supporting actor, I have Tom Hanks for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes, Al Pacino for The Irishman, Joe Pesci for The Irishman, and Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, as we kind of mentioned here, Hanks, Pacino, Pesci, Pitt, they're very much the strong bets here. Pretty much, going forward to the Oscars, it's really that 5th slot. Is it, Jamie Foxx for Just Mercy, Willem Dafoe for The Lighthouse, maybe? Is it Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes? Or is it somebody like a Song Kang-ho, who I just put in for the Oscar predictions here? Maybe it's somebody, we mentioned him earlier in the season, and I would love to see him nominated, even though it's not the best performance of the year, but it's Alan Alda for Marriage Story. Maybe even Taika Waititi could make a big comeback here at BAFTA for Jojo Rabbit. But I feel like The Two Popes is going to go over here pretty well. It does, Anthony McCartan, I believe, is a British screenwriter. So as far as I know, he is. And then no, he's New Zealand. Okay, New Zealand. I was going to look that up. But Two Popes does have a British, I believe it's British producer on it. So it will be eligible for Best British Film. So I have an opinion that this is going to do pretty well here at BAFTA as well. So I think Anthony Hopkins also being Welsh, that really helps his chances here. For lead actress, I have Scarlett Johansson for Marriage Story, Lupita Nyong'o for Us, Saoirse Ronan for Little Women, Charlize Theron for Bombshell, and also Renee Zellweger in for Judy. So that does leave off Cynthia Erivo, who is British. Then again, so is Lupita. So that was a very, very, that's a very close, it was almost like a coin flip for me, like which one do I want to go with? And, as much as Cynthia Erivo is playing, a legendary character, and it's definitely going to be the closest she's gotten to an Oscar nomination. If she doesn't get it, I think she does get in at the Oscars. But I'll just let the heater run here. We should be okay with the mic here. But I think, like I said, this was a really tough call. I'm going Lupita here because Us, I think, overall has a little bit of a higher chance of getting some BAFTA nods than Harriet does. And I think that, there is some history. Lupita was not nominated, she was nominated but did not win the year of 12 Years a Slave. They went and gave it to Jennifer Lawrence that year for American Hustle. So, maybe a second nomination kind of, helps make up for that. Because this is arguably her next chance at a nomination across her career. It's been, 6 years now since 12 Years a Slave, and we haven't seen her get that kind of Oscar potential role since then. So Us, I have a feeling the BAFTAs are going to go for her over Cynthia Erivo. Otherwise, I don't think The Farewell is going to do very well here at BAFTA, but I'll throw out Awkwafina just in case. I'll also throw out Dame Helen Mirren for The Good Liar, and then Isabelle Huppert. I can't remember, was she nominated for Elle after the year? I thought she missed out, but so if that was the case, which I believe it was, again, if I without looking it up really quick, but she has a movie out called Frankie, which hasn't really been talked about much this year, but you never know. I'll just throw it out as a possibility here. For lead actor, I have Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and Jonathan Pryce I have in for The Two Popes here. Again, I just think the Two Popes is going to go over pretty well here. So once again, I do have De Niro missing here, as he has kind of surprisingly missed through the rest of the season here. Price, another Welsh actor, that he, again, I would say arguably, could have been nominated last year for The Wife, and now with this performance here, a lot of people like his performance and like the idea of nominating him. Another Welsh actor we have to look out for, he's kind of sticking around, is Christian Bale. We kind of mentioned that here. If he gets in here at BAFTA, like I said in the other video, I will put him in over De Niro at the Oscars. Otherwise, I'm keeping De Niro for now, but... Then again, Price, he missed out at SAG, but he's got the Globe, and if he does get BAFTA, it's like, well, that makes it a little tougher decision there. But if we see somebody like Bale, who's gotten, what would then be, I'm kind of repeating myself from yesterday, but it stands to say it again, SAG, BAFTA, Globe, then yeah, that almost, I think, puts him over the edge. So yeah, another couple I'm leaving off here are Taron Egerton for as playing Elton John in Rocketman. It's just a really stiff category here, and it's like I could see, we could be maybe overestimating the appeal of DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think overall the movie's going to do well here, but that could be one that gets left off the list. I think Antonio Banderas feels pretty safe for Pain and Glory. I think that one will go over pretty good with BAFTA here. Phoenix and Driver, I think, are pretty much locks to get nominated here, so... yeah, maybe DiCaprio's the weak link here, but I don't know. I just think they like him enough, they'll like the movie enough, I think they'll go for it. We could see, again, depending on really how well 1917 does, George McKay, who's, I guess, one of the co-leads in 1917, he could be nominated here, and yeah, we'll see if Robert Pattinson maybe makes a last-minute surprise for The Lighthouse, something like that, British actor as well, so keep that in mind. Alright, then Best Director, the 5 I have are Pedro Almodovar for Pain and Glory, Noah Baumbach for Marriage Story, Sam Mendes for 1917, Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, and Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, yeah, that does leave a couple names off the list here, again, that, are a little bit more likely at the Oscars, potentially, like... obviously, Bong Joon-ho, who's, again, as long as Parasite is out of contention, that kind of leaves that spot open for Almodovar and for Baumbach to kind of, one of them will go in. Let's see, it was mentioned Paweł Pawlowski did get in last year for Cold War. Mikhail Haneke got in for Amour in 2012. That, again, I think helped his candidacy at the Oscars. And then another one is Florian Henkel von Dennersmark, I believe is how you pronounce his name, The Lives of Others. He was a nominee at BAFTA as well, so Almodovar does feel like, he's in that ring there. He's a known director. He's gotten a few of his other films have gotten a lot of acclaim over the years, so I think BAFTA... If he gets in here at BAFTA, I might, maybe push him in over Baumbach at the Oscars. Otherwise, Greta Gerwig, she was nominated for Lady Bird here, wasn't she? I'm pretty sure. I want to look that up really quick one more time before I get that wrong. Let's see, maybe she wasn't. I could have sworn she was. No, that's right, she was. Yeah, she was left off the list. She was nominated for screenplay, but not for director. So I guess there is a little bit of an IOU factor for that, but again, I think Little Women, it'll do well in the acting category, screenplay, maybe a couple tech categories, but I don't necessarily seeing it being as a big threat here at BAFTA. Joker, Todd Phillips is one, yeah, that I would not really blink too much if he did get in here. Again, we'll see how well The Two Popes really goes over, because if Fernando Meirelles does get in for that one, that's a big win for him. Terrence Malick for Hidden Life is another one I'm kind of looking at, and then Taika Waititi for Jojo Rabbit, maybe, depending, again, on how well it goes over here. Okay, so, yeah, the director category sure is pretty stacked here this year. But going into another category that's, very much singular to BAFTA's Best British Film, there's 6 nominees here. The 6 I have picked out are 1917, no surprise there, Downton Abbey, Judy, Rocketman, The Two Popes, and Wild Rose. So, there's one thing to keep in mind here. Both Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Marriage Story are produced by British legend David Heyman, who did the Harry Potter movies and stuff. So, one of those could definitely crash this party, but I get the feeling both of those are going to be nominated for Best Film. So with this category, even though we'll probably see 1917 bleed over definitely for Best Film overall, I don't know. I think it'd be a little tacky for the Brits to kind of put, 3 or maybe even 4 Best British Films also into Best Film. So I think that, yeah, those two, one of them or both of them could, but I think, again, that they want to save that for Best Film overall. And, Judy has a British director. Everything else, I think had a producer or writer or director that had, I kind of looked into everything here. And, yeah, you got Julian Fellows was behind Downton Abbey as a producer, so that definitely counts. I believe it also had a British director, but I could be wrong. Rocket Man has Dexter Fletcher. I believe he's British. If not, it had a producer on there, I believe. The Two Popes has a British producer. Wild Rose was nominated at the British Independent Spirit Awards. That has a British filmmaker behind it. So, yeah, those kind of feel like solid picks to me. Otherwise, there were a couple other ones that I had picked out here that did well at British Independent Film Awards. We talked about For Sama. I have that in for documentary at the... was it documentary? Yeah, I think it's doc at the Oscars. Yeah. And then Souvenir and Personal History of David Copperfield were a couple other ones that did really well at the BAFTA Independent Awards. So we'll see if maybe another one of them or maybe in place of Wild Rose if one of them gets in. But, we do typically see here at BAFTA for the British film category a couple independent ones, not just the big name, like Judy, Rocket Man, Two Popes, 1917. Not just always those, but... I don't know, I thought I'd hedge my bets a little bit and put in, definitely some more famous ones. Okay, then for best film overall, the 5 I have are 1917, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Irishman, and The Two Popes. So again, I'm really betting heavy on The Two Popes here for Tuesday. And that does leave out, like I mentioned, Joker is, one that could very easily, especially if it gets that director nod, could easily break into best film as well here. I would also be on the lookout for Little Women, just in case. Jojo Rabbit, Ford v Ferrari again, maybe. Bombshell, maybe. Pain and Glory, is probably a more likely one. And then Rocket Man could also break into Best Film, and not just Best British Film. So that's one to look out for here. Otherwise, yeah, Marriage Story, Hollywood, Irishman, those are pretty much safe bets everywhere. 1917 is going to be catnip for these guys, so that's pretty much a lock there. So, yeah, The Two Popes is about the only risky one in there, and I have it in for both film and British film, but I don't know, I just think it's going to go over well with BAFTA voters. I think it's, two Welsh actors in the lead roles, directed by, not a British director, but I believe he's a French director, or Italian, something like that. I think it's going to be good enough for them to like it there, and enough stuff behind it that I think they'll go for it there. All right, so that's BAFTA there. Then really quick, getting into the last few Guild Awards. Producers Guild is always a fun one to try to predict because there's, sometimes there's some big money makers in there. Sometimes they go with, leave off a couple of big Oscar potentials here. And it's really staggering at how, especially when they have just a slate of 10 nominees here, how close they always get to the Best Picture list. In the last 5 years, only 4 films have missed PGA and gotten on to the ballot for Best Picture. Those are Phantom Thread, Room, Selma, and Philomena. So, pretty much, the 10 films they go with here, if you're left off the list, it's very difficult to overcome that. Unless it's something curious, like if Parasite somehow, I don't think that will, but if something like Parasite gets left off the list, or somehow Jojo Rabbit or Little Women gets left off, which maybe, but something like that. It's like, yeah, I would still keep it in for Best Picture if that were the case. But yeah, so the 10 I have here are basically the 10 I have at the Oscars too: 1917, Ford v Ferrari, Joker, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, The Irishman, and The Farewell. Let's see here. I'm gonna just flip this really quick. I'm looking at my template for that, and I've got, I try to get them alphabetical, so J becomes before K, so Jojo Rabbit, Joker, whatever. Not the biggest deal in the world, but yeah, once again, these are the 10 I have for Best Picture right now, the up to 10, remembering, and before we get, too many people that are like, why the fuck wasn't this nominated, and stuff like, you have up to 10 slots, it's like, remember, these 10 slots are determined by overall what the percentage of each film got across the Academy, so the only way we could see 10 films nominated is if, like, in the, to get that max percentage, like 10% of the Academy only voted for 1917, 10% of the Academy only voted for Marriage Story, only 10% voted number 1 for The Irishman, and so on and so forth down the line. It's like, and it's just, you might have a good year like this year, there's tons of great movies out there, and that's, usually the case through the years there, but it's like, it's really difficult to get it to 10, and, it'd have to be a very, very, like, divisive year where it's like, man, so many people love this one, but so many people hate this one, and that gets it closer to like, instead of 20% of the votes, number one votes being for, say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, now it's only like 11%, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think we could see. We always look at a couple of potential money makers, that make the list, like Deadpool, A Quiet Place, Wonder Woman. They've made the list before. So I would say if we're looking at like kind of the blockbuster fare, Joker is $1 billion movie worldwide. The rest of these I think respectively have done pretty well for their box office. Parasite is continuing to do very well here in the U.S. The Irishman and Marriage Story both being Netflix films. I think for what they've done in limited theatrical release, I think they've done okay. The Farewell did very well here. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood cracked $140 million domestic. Little Women is chugging along. That's over $60 million now in the U.S. Joker, as I mentioned, $1 billion worldwide and over $300 million U.S. Jojo Rabbit, I believe, is closing in on $25 million domestic, so that's good. Ford v Ferrari, we mentioned, is at close to $110 million now by the end of this weekend. In 1917, so far in its limited run, has caught over $2 million, and when it opens wide this Friday, it'll probably be the number one film at the box office here in the States, and it'll likely catch, around that $100 million mark, depending on really how well it does. But I would say that's more likely than not. Based off of not just the word of mouth, but like the fact that it's January, and this looks like a really intense war film, and I think people are excited for this one. And I think Universal has done a very good job with the marketing campaign, too. Anyways, but that being said, so something like an Avengers Endgame being the highest grossing film of all time now, does that make the list? I don't quite think so. A lot of those blockbuster people, that like to put the money got this, so we're going to give it the vote. That Joker probably gets that. Plus, remember, even though Avengers Endgame did 2.7, almost $2.8 billion, Joker, at the end of the day, I believe was more profitable, if depending on the accounts you read and stuff like that, because it had a smaller budget, still got $1 billion, but it's like the gap there was a lot wider than Endgame, which might have cost up to like $400 million, I think was the highest I've read, but yeah. Let's see, otherwise, Bombshell could make the list. The Two Popes, I'm keeping an eye out for that one. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Knives Out. Knives Out, pretty popular film, pretty profitable film as well, so that could make the list, and we could be overlooking that one. Dolomite Is My Name, we'll see. I don't know if they go 3 or even 4 Netflix films, I don't quite think so. Uncut Gems and Hustlers being the other two that I'm kind of maybe have a small shot there. And then for the 5 at the Directors Guild, I've kind of talked about this last few videos, so not too many surprises here. It's Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Sam Mendes for 1917, Todd Phillips for Joker, Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, and Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Overall, I think Parasite's doing pretty good across the guilds. Bong Joon-ho is a very, right now he's a very much talked about name, so he's pretty much a lock for this. Mendes, being a one-shot style film, 1917 just feels like that's a natural fit there. Scorsese and Tarantino feel pretty solid right now. Hollywood's doing pretty well across the guilds. The Irishman is no slouch in the guilds at all. And then Joker, we've ratcheted up now. Cinematographers Guild, Makeup Guild, Art Directors Guild, Ace Eddie, Cinema Audio, and the Sound Editors Golden Reel Guild all chimed in and got at least one nomination for Joker. Depending on the different ceremonies here, sometimes they have multiple awards, but yeah, they are all lining up for Joker. Now, almost all of those, cinematographers, the Art Directors Guild, Ace Eddie, and I believe both Cinema Audio and Sound Editors Guild also gave a lot of stuff, though, to Ford v Ferrari. So that could be a late-breaking one that gets in here, and we could see James Mangold all of a sudden launch into the director race here. That is very possible now. I'm starting to look at that as more of an option here. I don't necessarily think he's the first one that gets up over everybody else, though. I think that's probably Noah Baumbach, just depending on the overall popularity of Marriage Story. But just, that category, especially when we get to the Oscars, that branch is so insular with so many auteur directors and stuff, like we saw Pawlowski and Cuarón and, the names there, and Paul Thomas Anderson getting in for Phantom Thread out of nowhere and stuff like that. It's like they really like their directorial storytellers, not just the films like Marriage Story, which feels, some could argue more like a writing accomplishment than a directing accomplishment, Whereas 1917, that's a director's accomplishment. The Irishman, with all the technical, woohoo and stuff. It's like that's a technical, director's accomplishment. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a lot of recreation, and it's Tarantino. They'll probably go for that one. And you could argue that too for Bong Joon-ho and Parasite. That feels, even though it's, again, that's a close call. Is it a bigger writing or directing achievement? It's like they're both so good. It's like, I don't know. But again, the overall popularity of the film, I think that one feels pretty safe. So yeah, that's, Bone is another one to watch out for there. We could see Greta Gerwig come in here. She was at the DGA there in 2017 for Lady Bird, so it's possible. Taika Waititi, again, could make a last-minute push for Jojo Rabbit, which is doing okay with the guilds, about as well as we suspected there. Little Women is about in that same range there. And then Lulu Wang, I have her name in just in case for The Farewell as included there too. So, but yeah, I think, again, the 5 I've got are probably the 5 more likely ones, again, with the exception of a James Mangold maybe sneaking in there. Okay, then really quick for the WGAs, really quick, let me go into them again here. So once again, the Two Popes is over in the original side now, so that leaves room. I think the 5 will be The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and Joker. All 5 of those are making the list and everything, so I would be surprised if it isn't any of those 5. Then on the original screenplay side, we've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Farewell are out. So that leaves, if I'm remembering correctly now, I don't have it pulled out in front of me again. So Marriage Story, Parasite, I think are definite locks here. Knives Out feels pretty good now. I think we'll see Two Popes get in there. And the 5th nominee is where it's like, okay, do we go Bombshell? Do we go Pain and Glory, which I believe qualifies? No, Pain and Glory's out. That's right. Do they go 1917, which, again, has done very well across the guilds there? Do they go something like Uncut Gems or Dolomite or Booksmart, one of those more, more or less comedic, so to speak, films? Do they go like Jordan Peele for Us? Do they really go, again, for how well the film's doing across the guilds, do they go Ford v Ferrari here, with the screen? I believe there's 3 writers on that one, whereas most of the rest of these are one writer. Like, I believe Charles Randolph's the sole writer on Bombshell. Sam Mendes is the sole writer on 1917. Of course, Tarantino for Hollywood. Bone for Marriage Story. Parasite, I think Bong Joon-ho is solely nominated at the Globes, but if I remember right, he had a writing partner on Parasite, if I remember right. Han Jin-woo was also a nominated, or a screenplay writer there. I don't know why it's... I don't know. That might be an error, maybe, but I thought I read the Globes only had his name on the ballot there for Parasite for writing. So I don't know. Maybe there's a little, because I know some people are thinking Parasite could go 3 for 3 tonight at the Globes. I would not be shocked based on the popularity of the film and the fact that Roma not guaranteed last year to do it, but Roma had that chance last year and almost pulled it off with 2 out of 3. But yeah, I think maybe if that's a case there, sometimes we see those little controversies on who's included, who's not on the ballot affected. I remember the year of Get Out, that was a big thing in the SAG Ensemble Award. Some people said they were... the argument was that, 3 Billboards that year was doing so well with the SAG voters there. Of course, we saw Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand win, and they were expected to win, no doubt. But it's like, was it also going to pull it off and win 3 of its 4 bids and win 3 out of the 5 categories, and also take Ensemble, which it did. And I think a few people argued that, Get Out was probably the one that was more likely to win there, but because the rules were, any actor who's not singled out in the credits doesn't get included, which, they had, like, Lil Ray Howery and the actress who played, like, the kind of grandmother-ish character in Get Out, she wasn't singled out in the credits, so a couple of those guys got left off, which I think some people, kind of protest vote didn't go for that one for that reason. But maybe that's the case with Parasite here. But then again, it's a much smaller voting branch here in the Globe, so I don't know. That just kind of came to my head right now, actually. So I have nothing else to back that up, but. Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm rooting against that one in the screenplay category, but I'd like to get the prediction right, of course. But I do love Parasite, man. So anything it wins tonight, I'm happy for. Let's see here. So yeah, once again, the 5 I've got are Marriage Story, Marriage Story, Parasite, Knives Out, and then I've got, for WGA, I should, make sure we're clear on this. So it's, once again, Marriage Story, Parasite, Knives Out, and I've got, I'll put Bombshell in there, and we'll go 1917 for that last one there. Yeah, I think we'll go with those 5, but... Yeah, I think that original, the Two Popes. I had the Two Popes in there, right? I've got one list pulled up here. It doesn't have the Two Popes on it, so we'll take out 17. We'll put in Two Popes there. So one more time, let's do this for real now. Marriage Story, Parasite, Two Popes, Bombshell, Knives Out. Yeah, we'll do those 5. Okay, with potential spoilers being 1917, 4v Ferrari, and a couple other ones there. So okay. Yeah, so I think at WGA, that original screenplay category is a lot more competitive this year. Adapted, I seriously would be shocked if we didn't see any of those 5 there. So, okay, we're going to get ready for the Globes here, and I'll be back later tonight once those are all wrapped up. We'll go into some quick reactions, follow-ups, what's going to happen at the Oscars and across the other things, and so on and so forth.